Good morning, everyone. Thanks again for joining us on this very, very cold morning. Appreciate you being here today for the NOTAM Manager webinar, part of our winter technical webinar series. I'm Natalie Niskanen. I'm a program coordinator with the Minnesota Airport Technical Assistance Program, and I'm just going to give a quick overview for the uninitiated about AirTAP. AirTAP helps Minnesota's public and private sector airport professionals improve the safety, quality, and efficiency of airport operations and increases the use of new navigation materials, practices, and technology. We have several events and training opportunities that we have throughout the year, including the annual Airports Conference, a webinar series that we're having here, as well as the AAM webinar series, and then the annual Wildlife Hazard Control Workshop. And then we also have electronic and print newsletters covering airport management related content relevant to all Minnesota airports, large and small. And we are sponsored by the University of Minnesota Center for Transportation Studies and the Minnesota Department of Transportation's Office of Aeronautics. This webinar is part of AirTAP's Winter Technical Webinar Series designed to provide airport managers and consultants with relevant and timely information to support airport management. I'd like to call your attention to the upcoming March 18th webinar, which will preview airport management content featuring Kim Kenville, who will be at this year's Airports Conference. We also have the Advanced Air Mobility webinar series with upcoming webinars scheduled in February and continuing throughout the spring. We have the next one is this coming Thursday. Register if you haven't already. And then we have the CTS Unpacking Freight themed webinar covering aviation on April 3rd. Please register for that one as well. Just a quick look at our upcoming events. We have the Airports Conference on April 23 to 25 in Mankato. And then the May 7th Wildlife Hazard Control Workshop is available for registration. Just visit our website to register. Really quickly, your feedback is valuable to helping us understand your needs and your clients' needs. This survey is going to appear in your browser after the webinar concludes. We encourage you to fill that out. Take a second, let us know how it went. If you have any feedback, we had some feedback from the previous one that we're going to take into account for this one. So we really appreciate any comments, suggestions, or thoughts that you have. Please take 2 seconds and fill that out. And then as far as housekeeping items for today, we are going to utilize the Q&A. If you have any questions, please put those in the Q&A on your screen, and we will get to those probably towards the end of the webinar. So just feel free to enter those in, and we'll come back to those as the time comes up. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ken Rowland with the FAA. And Ken, I'll let you properly introduce yourself with your titles and so on.
Thank you very much, Natalie. I appreciate that. So everyone, thank you. Thanks for taking the time this morning just to get out of the cold. I looked at some Minnesota temperatures and I'm pretty impressed with you guys. I'm in North Texas, so I don't think we could deal with that at all. Rob and Natalie had asked me to have this 45 minutes. If you want to, we can maybe extend it to 2 or 3 hours so you don't have to go back outside. That's but like Natalie said, my name is Ken Rowland. I work in the we call ourselves the NIST team. Actually, it's the NOTAM Manager Deployment and Training Team. I train airports on the use of NOTAM Manager. NOTAM Manager is the preferred method for airports to issue NOTAMs. I see some names already in the list that I know are on NOTAM Manager and everything. So we can, we're going to get into that. We're going to talk a little bit about NOTAM Manager. But my background is I was a 34-year air traffic controller. I started at Riverside in Tulsa. I went to Tulsa International, and then I spent 29 years at DFW Approach Control, ending as an operational manager in 2021. I've been working as a subject matter expert, performing duties like this. We train airports every day. We go in and we train airports on the use of NOTAM Manager, and we're expanding that. I think there's some people in here that have already went through CNDA training. That's another aspect of NOTAM Manager that we'll get to. Excuse me, try to get this out. So Rob had asked me to gear this towards that. We all know that there's city and county employees that your boss points at you one day and says you're now the airport manager, and you don't have a lot of aviation experience or background, and that's fine. You don't necessarily have to. to have that experience. We probably have 30-year airport managers in this group at all. So I'm going to tailor it towards those people that are just trying to get their feet wet, trying to know what to do. But please, anyone has any questions, any comments, don't hesitate, put them in the chat. When we get done, we'll all talk about that and we'll discuss it a little bit. So I am going to share a screen. I'm going to try to not kill everybody by do the death by PowerPoint. I'm going to just hit the highlights of this. Wrong window. I'm sorry. Let me know, Natalie, do you see my screen yet?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So this is wrong one. I'll have it up in just a second. My apologies. There you go. So myself and Jordan Smith from the United States NOTAM office built this about 10 days ago. In that 10 days, we've had a executive order and a you may or may not have seen it, but it's no longer notice to air missions. It is now, it's back to notice to airmen. So, for if you've been in aviation, for as long as we can remember, it was notice to airmen. It was changed in 2021. We're back to notice to airmen, and I didn't get a chance to update these slides, but that, like I said, this slide's only about 10 days old, so that's where you get that. I'm not going to go through there, and I'm not going to read everything this. I'm just going to hit some highlights. And again, if anyone has questions, put it in the chat. We'll go back. We'll talk about them at the end. My counterpart in the United States NOTAM office built this particular one. His name was Jordan Smith. But just so you know, the United States NOTAM office, and that is the authority that ensures that NOTAM formats and are compliant. They fit into all NOTAM policies. You'll see United States NOTAM. They're constantly going in and QA and NOTAMs. If you've been in very long, you've probably got a call from someone from the United States NOTAM office, and they'll say, "Hey, here's what we need to do," and they'll edit NOTAMs as it goes like that. But in the U.S., we process about 2 million NOTAMs a year. There's only 12 people in the United States NOTAM office working 24/7. They're very busy people. They're constantly, this time of year, whenever there's, airports, Detroit, Minnesota, Chicago, they're issuing well over 1,000 NOTAMs a month, in these winter months. So everybody this time of year is extremely busy. So just a little bit of background. We'll go to basics. A NOTAM is just information that personnel with flight operations can know what's going on at their destination and in the route of flight. It's required. Pilots are required to pull up NOTAMs at their destination airport, along the route of flight, and their departure airport, just so they know what it is. You as an airport manager, you should be putting out NOTAMs that is abnormal conditions at your airport. Obviously, you can only issue NOTAMs on items that you control, you own. If you have an AWOS at your airport, but it's the FAA's, you can report it to them, but that's not your responsibility to issue that NOTAMs. That should be the FAA's. Obviously, NOTAMs are real time. You put them in, they're updated immediately. There's a unique language, and that's the formatting. That's where NOTAM Manager will really help you. All the contractions and everything. It makes it to sort them. Pilots get used to seeing the exact same NOTAMs wherever they're at across the country. I'm not going to go over this one. This just tells you who all uses these NOTAM systems. Everyone's probably seen examples. So they're important because these pilots can get the information on all these conditions: runway closures, airport closures, surface conditions, navigational outages, any construction on the airport, etc. Fuel availability. If the one I always use is a lot of airports have that old 1965 mobile fuel truck that you got to go air up the tires and put the battery on. You can put a prior permission on that. You can say you need 30 minutes to get air in the tires and start it. So, as what you're able to issue NOTAMs on, it really, it helps you. It helps the flying community. That's exactly what these NOTAMs are designed to do. Go over the next one. This just says what I'd said earlier. This is pilots requirements from 114 CFR, but pilots are required to gather that information. You can read this. By the way, I'm going to make these both of these available to Natalie and Rob, and they can handle them out if anyone wants these PowerPoints, since I'm just going to hit the high points of a lot of these. So this is who is required to issue NOTAMs. Obviously, if you're a Part 139 airports, there's probably a few Part 139s in here, and you know what that is. If you don't know if you're Part 139 or not, you're probably not, but you are required to issue NOTAMs in accordance with the AC 150-5228G. That is basically the guidance that the FAA gives airports on issuing NOTAMs to be compliant with Part 139. A lot of airports don't know, especially after the 2022 Airport Improvement Program that came out there, that after COVID, the president went out and Congress designated a lot of money to airports that normally may not have gotten federal funds. If you are receiving federal funds, part of that receiving federal funds is that you do issue NOTAMs in accordance with AC 150-5228 Golf. I went and looked. There is about almost 200 programs in Minnesota that are obviously some airports have multiple programs, but there's 200 programs currently underway in Minnesota of airports receiving federal funds. So, just keep that in mind. Obviously, we did a Kansas DOT a while back, and he'd listed how many there were, 24. If you're not federally funded, the United States NOTAM office would like for you to issue NOTAMs in accordance with. We know that doesn't happen. There's no requirements at that point in time you do, but I'll give some examples in just a moment where it's really important upon you. It protects yourself, it protects the flying public to go ahead and issue those NOTAMs that do affect, the safety of flight. I've got a better one on another page. I'm going to talk about how to issue a NOTAM. On another one, I will. I've got two examples of this, but this was in North Carolina in 2019. Again, this isn't an uncommon situation. I'm going to have another one that's pretty similar to it in just a moment. But once again, someone mowing beside the runway, they didn't put out a NOTAM. Pilot didn't see the mower before it was too late, and you can get an example of see what that accident looks like. I'm going to move forward just a moment. Let's go to the next one. So myself, like I said, I work for the deployment team for the National Aerospace Integration Support Contract, and we train and we support airports in the use of NOTAM Manager. That's my primary job. If you ask me a very technical NOTAM question, I will probably take an IOU and I'll go straight to Jordan Smith in the United States NOTAM office. I'll say, help me out with that. So 95% of your NOTAM questions I can't issue, but there obviously will be some that I may not have the specific answer to. If you're on NOTAM Manager, I'm sure you've talked to a couple of members of my crew. Amy Kynard is a mapping wizard. She is just an absolute wizard. She also is a very useful tool. If you have just general questions about that, she has the ability to go in there and direct you where you need to. Erica is our project administrator. That's who answers most of our emails. Mark, Keith, myself, we're the subject matter airports. We're the ones going to the airports and actually going in and training those airports. You see, we're a very small team. Hopefully we don't get cut by any actions going on in Washington right now, but for right now, that's who it is. Again, so airports that use NOTAM Manager includes Part 139 and non-139 that we just talked about. Airports can issue NOTAMs either directly through flight service. There's an app or a program called EN2. If you issue a NOTAM through flight service, they use EN2. Airports are also have the ability to use the EN2 program. Problem is that it doesn't format or build. You have to have a pretty you have to have some more than basic knowledge to go and use an EN2 program. So we definitely recommend that if you're new to entering your own NOTAMs, we just contact us. I'll have a page here in the back about how you'll contact us, but use NOTAM Manager. NOTAM Manager, you don't need to know the formatting. You don't need to know contractions. It's going to format everything for you. And and issue those NOTAMs. It does error checks. It's not going to let you issue a bad NOTAM. Again, it is the preferred method for that the FAA would like to see airports issue NOTAMs. We just passed 1,850 airports nationwide that are using NOTAM Manager. Obviously, we're getting into some very small airports now that don't issue, but a handful of NOTAMs a year. Well, what we find out is when airports use NOTAM Manager, that there seems to be some stigma about picking up the phone and calling flight service. They don't, especially for that new person that really doesn't even know what they're asking for and everything. So we find when airports go to NOTAM Manager, they issue more NOTAMs, they issue more pertinent NOTAMs. So what we, it's an overall aid to the flying community. I won't go over this. We've already talked about the definition of a NOTAM. One thing I will talk about, it is a change in the not the normal. So I'm going to bring up another page really quick. So if you have published information, and a lot of airports, especially up in your neck of the woods, you may have a NOTAM that goes all the here's Duluth right now. I'm going to pull up theirs real quick. This is what we call this is published information, and there's probably a bird activity or something. Yeah, bird hazard, caution bird hazard. So to meet the requirements of Part 139, you don't have to go back and issue. If you have birds on the airport, you have that published information. It's only abnormal action. So if you have a dramatically increased amount of activity, then you'd go ahead and issue that NOTAM. That's why publishing is pretty critical to keep your airport information up to date. You, as a new airport manager that don't have a lot of information, you may not know what is actually published. So I wanted to show you, this is the airport data and information portal. I know I saw, Natalie, that you're going to have a 5010 inspection and everything, but this is where you update your published information. This is also where you can just go see what is actually published for your airport. If you don't know, you will have to actually update it. You'll have to register for an account, but I'm just going to, if Duluth's here, I'm sorry, I've started using you guys and I just wanted to pull it up but this is what it looks like, Duluth International. And it'll map the airport. Obviously, there's a lot of different maps. Let me get the teams out of the way. I mean, sorry, the Zoom. But you can have a lot of imagery, a lot of mapping for the airport. But this is also, you can hover over this and you can see what is actually published. This is the public information for, and you can go in. A lot of people will just say, I don't really know what's published. You can go in here, you can check to make sure all this information is updated. This is where you'll also update your airport ownership manager. If all that information changes, this is how you get that information published. And what happens from this point is, since this is public information, you saw I'm on an outside, I did not go behind any firewall or anything to get this information. You can get all these other users, and here is AirNav, they grab this data. Here is FlightAware, they grab this data. So that's how you get your information published. Kind of got off on a tangent there, but keeping your airport information updated is very important. You're also, if you guys build ramps, your mapping, that's where you'll also go in and you can update that information. I talked about Amy, her contact information. If you never need that, she can definitely direct you to the individuals that you need to update that. Let me pull back up. So I talk to every single airport I can about this information, and I kind of do it because this is my wife's hometown, Broken Bow, Oklahoma. This accident occurred in fall of 2023, and even though I know a lot of people in this hometown, I didn't personally know the people involved. I know some people that were affected by it, so I talked about this one quite a bit. The NTSB final report hasn't came up yet, but what happened was there was a Bonanza departed McKinney, Texas, was going up to Broken Bow, landing south. There was a young lady, 27-year-old mother of three, that was doing like a lot of, airport personnel will do. She needed to mow beside the runway. She grabbed the radio and got on and said, I'm going to go mow this. Well, as he's going along, there's also a baling operation. There's a crew baling hay on the opposite side of the runway. And, obviously I'm speculating, take it as that, but for whatever reason, the pilot kind of scooted over to the right side, and the speculation is he saw the bailer on the left, wanted to get a little farther away. He struck the lady with the right wing tip, killed her. Um, Midfield on the runway. There's no NOTAMs issued. I would like to think that if the pilot knew that there was some activity going on there, he would have been more prepared for it. Again, speculation. We don't know for sure what happened, but if he's prepared for that, he might have known where it was. He wouldn't try to get away. He'd be looking on both sides of the airport for any of that activity as it goes along. More importantly, this is going to go out and, you know, we know everything in life, but especially in aviation, this is going to become, an item that's going to be litigated. And, this last mission right here, this last statement that's on here, there were no noticed air missions active for mowing or head bailing operation being conducted at the airport. It's so easy to go and issue those NOTAMs, and we hope that it might have saved lives. We don't know that, but we also, um, you know, want to protect yourself, the county, the city, whoever it is, from these type of activities. So getting back into NOTAM Manager just a little bit, like I said, we're gonna go in and we'll play with it just a little bit. I won't have a lot of time, but I'm gonna at least do a little demo. But NOTAM Manager, speed and accuracy, you're gonna see you're able to issue NOTAMs in seconds. It's going to be compliant. It's going to be accurate. You're not going to have to worry about it. And as a staff, and I say staff, that may be two people at some of your airports. It may be one person at your airport, but it will streamline your NOTAMs. It'll just get you in the posture of issuing those NOTAMs that you normally don't. So if you want to get access to NOTAM Manager, if you say I want it at my airport, just so you know, it's not a immediate process. It's definitely 2 training session. One is short. We go in and we'll map the airport. We'll talk about equipment ownership, because like I'd mentioned earlier, you can only issue NOTAMs on items that you own, or you have a letter of agreement that allows you to issue a NOTAM on it. And then we have a second one where we don't just say, here it is, learn on your own. We do a pretty in-depth, up to 2 hours that we'll train you. We'll hold your hand. We have a demo product that I'm going to be using here in a moment that you'll see, where it lets you go in and make, and issue NOTAMs, make mistakes, go through the drop down, see what's available. So it's not something that just happens immediately, but again, you're not expected to know it immediately. We're going to go in there, we're going to support you, we're going to train you. I'm here. You'll have my contact information. You can send me an email and say, can I get on NOTAM Manager? There is a phone number, 816-329-2550, that all the members of my team have access to. We get notified. You can do that. Or there is a self-cert website listed here. That self-cert, when you go to it, it looks like it's asking you to train yourself. It's not really. It's going to notify us. We're going to go there. We'll contact you, and we'll go through the training process at that point. I'm gonna get a little bit into before I get into NOTAM Manager into the demo. We'll talk a little bit about some changes that occurred. And you guys are up there in winter weather, so at least wanted to make sure we touch this just a little bit. You guys are up there where in 2005, Southwest Airlines went off the end of Midway Airport. 2 important things came about from that crash. One was the Takeoff Landing Performance Assessment Committee, the TALPA. We call it the TALPA committee, was formed that became the entity that the FAA said that braking action is too vague, it's too different from pilot to pilot. We want to start taking a deep in-depth look at this and find out what we need to do. RCAM came about because of that. In just a moment, I'm going to bring up the RCAM matrix. We can take a look at it. Also, more importantly, what it did is it said that FAA said the NOTAM system itself was part of the fault of that accident, just because pilots weren't getting NOTAMs and timely information. And basically NOTAM Manager came about because of that congressional mandate. But part of the TALPA's job is to address safeties of operation on wet and contaminated runway, and they make improvements for the assessment and reporting of these surface conditions. So everyone's heard RCAM. That's a runway condition assessment matrix. Right now, you might find a flight service specialist that might let you put a braking action on a runway, but just so you know, according to NOTAM policy, you should not be able to issue a NOTAM based on, a NOTAM that includes braking action on a runway. It's going to, it's called a runway condition code, an RCC, and it's based on what's actually on the runway. That's what the TALP committee have went in, and you can see that if it's going to take all these values, if it, whatever you have on the runway, and that's even if you don't use NOTAM Manager, if you're an airport that doesn't, down in the South, you guys know what happens if it's, we've got a freezing rain event's going to start here in a few hours. You know what happens here in North Texas? We just close runways. We don't deal with snow and ice well at all. You guys have to deal with it every day. So as long as you know what's on your runway, even if you're calling into flight service, you're going to be able to get to say, hey, what's going on? Is it I've got 1 inch of wet snow over ice that covers 40% of the runway. The rest of it is blowing snow. I'm giving examples, but just as long as you know what's on the runway, you're going to be able to put these runway condition codes in without without having a lot of aviation experience to do that. The next few slides is going to be NOTAM Manager slides that I'm going to go through. I'm not even going to go through. This is because I'm going to bring it up live in just a moment. At the very back, though, I did want to have this contact information. This is a great little sheet just to have somewhere if you need some quick information. Has my contact information. Jordan with the United States NOTAM office has the information. I will ask you that you contact me first. I'll sort through what I'm able to answer, and if there's something that I don't know the answer, I'll contact Jordan. So if you issue NOTAMs through Leidos Flight Service, the first thing you do is you have to have, if you've never issued NOTAMs to your airport, you're gonna have to be on their authorized issuer list prior to issue that NOTAM. So this phone number, you can call them up. These people are great. They'll sit there, walk you through it. They'll hold your hand. Even when you start issuing NOTAMs, they're there as a service to you. You can kind of tell them, hey, I really don't know what to do. How do I do this? They'll kind of lead you, what are you trying to do, and lead you to the direct information. That airport data information portal that I brought up, that's where you can update the 5010s, the information for your airport. This is the link to that. And again, there's the NOTAM Manager access tool, phone number, and the self-cert website should you have any information with that. So with that being said, I am going to bring up NOTAM Manager really quick, let you take a look at it. This is NOTAM Manager. This is that demo site that I talked about. This is that demo site that allows you to go in and we can play. This is how I'm going to train you. This is, the best way for you as an airport to, train yourself as you go along. I brought up Duluth again. I'm going to keep using them this morning. I hope they're here somewhere here in there, but I am going to show a real basic. Everything is based on keywords. When you get into NOTAMs, you're going to see all NOTAMs have keywords. The NOTAM Manager keywords are the NOTAMs are the keywords that you're able to issue NOTAMs on. In this case, it's taxiway, runway, obstruction, apron, and aerodrome. And I'm just going to, like I said, give a few examples. I'm going to select the aerodrome. The designator is obviously the aerodrome means the airport environment. So pick up the airport. And then these are scenarios. And if I want to close the airport, to show you how easy this is, I create the NOTAM. The only other information I have to put on this to make this a valid number is a time frame. To make it a valid NOTAM. Everybody don't worry about, I'm going to just put in some values. I'm more interested in just letting you build NOTAMs. That quickly, the Duluth Aerodrome Airport closed. That quickly, I have been able to put this in because this is a demo environment. I can actually submit this NOTAM. And in just a matter of seconds, there it is. That and that's not any different than it'll be real time in the in the in the live version. That goes into the NAS that quickly. It's an active NOTAM that was just in seconds. I want to cancel it. I can cancel that NOTAM this quickly. So those NOTAMs for mowing the grass, and I said, I brought up the point that airports, constantly will jump on their mower. They'll go out there, they'll get their radio, they'll jump out in their mower and they'll say, hey, I'll be fine. If I hear someone coming in, I'll just pull off to the side. No big deal. And they do it without issuing a NOTAM. Well, to issue that NOTAM on mowing, I'm gonna show you how easy it is. We're gonna do it on a runway. We're gonna do it on both ends of it. It's a work in progress. This looks complicated. When we train on it, we're going to make it real simple because a lot of it is just knowing just playing through these drop downs and knowing what's available. Create the NOTAM. We're going to do it on grass cutting. Again, let's say that I'm going to say this adjacent to the runway. Yes. A time. I'm going to jump on it right now. Let's preview it. Right here, Duluth runway 321, work in progress, grass cutting adjacent to the runway. Good NOTAM. I submit it, and that quickly, I've issued that NOTAM that we all know this NOTAM gets. I don't want to say bypassed, but this NOTAM doesn't get issued nearly as much as it should. If you're one of those Part 139s or you're one of those airports that are receiving federal funds, this is not just a nice, this is required NOTAM information. So that circular right there will give you some requirements of what you need to do. But this is a great, this is a great tool. Anything you need, you saw we had the aerodrome and all the stuff that you can issue on this. Obviously, Duluth is a Part 139. They have an ARF. You can change the status of it, beacon closure, friction measuring. You guys in Minnesota may have some friction measuring devices. We tend to only see those in Alaska because you guys probably know it too. As old ice actually gets more traction. As ice has been on the runway longer, it starts to pick up dirt, rock, other debris in that, and it's not like it was. So friction measuring devices, especially in Alaska's got a whole different set of rules anyway. But fuel availability, wildlife hazards, wind indicator status, work in progress, very easy to issue these NOTAMs. At least I told you I was going to talk a little bit about issuing a field condition, a surface condition report. So let's go to runway. You see, in this case for Duluth, they have both ends and they have a single end of the runway. A lot of the NOTAMs that you issue have to be directional. Directional would be runway 3, that's one direction, or runway 21. If I try to issue a surface condition NOTAM on runway 3221, won't allow me to do that. You can't issue a surface condition NOTAM on a closed runway or both ends. If you issue a surface condition on runway 3 and a pilot, you have an instant approach to 21 and they're going to land 21, it is not your job to cancel that NOTAM and issue a new one in. It's the expectation that the pilot is able to interpolate, flip the values. And when I talk about values, if you're not aware of them, I'll get to that just right now. So surface condition. So the first thing you see is we have what we call the 3 values. We have touchdown, midpoint, and rollout. The surface conditions are broken into thirds, obviously, because it may not be the same value all the way down the runway. Your touchdown may be blown off. If you have jets landing, they may blow it off. It may be from people landing on it. It may be slicker than normal. So that doesn't, that doesn't matter. But you as an airport manager, and you as, I'm talking to the newer airport manager, even if you don't use NOTAM Manager, you just need to know what you're seeing whenever you call flight service. So let's talk about, let's issue a surface condition for runway 3 at Duluth. So let's just say nothing's went on there and it started snowing. So we have 100% coverage of, let's say, 2 inches. And what is actually coming out? We're going to call it wet snow. At this point, all I have to do is add that contaminant. Add that contaminant means I'm adding it to that third. Now I can come down here and I can hand type this in, but if it's the same the whole width down the runway, or sorry, the whole length down the runway, I can just copy, copy, copy. So what NOTAM Manager, and even if you call flight service at this point in time, what it's done is it's used that RCAM value, that RCAM matrix. It's pulled what you said you put on the runway, and it's created a runway condition code. You see the touchdown is 3, the midpoint is 3, the rollout is 3. You know, you don't have to have a lot of aviation. You know, you can look at that matrix. I'm not going to pull it back up, but you know, we know that that's going to um, be something like a braking action medium, but because a King Air might land and say the braking action was nil, a Learjet may land and say the braking action was good. That's we were getting so much value. That's where this runway condition code came in. The only other required information, either through NOTAM Manager or through flight service to issue this NOTAM, is to have a time. And I can come here and I can say I'm going to use the current date and time. I can enter it here. There's a lot of other information that you're going to see. I'm going to scroll down, just kind of look at you. Contaminant width, that would be if you, it always assumes full width. If you do less than, if you do treat it, you know, how much feet have you treated? Treatment fields, remainder fields, snowbanks, conditions. Again, all of that is just extra information. But if you're not doing anything other than saying what's on the runway, at this point in time, I have completed this. You see, there's actually a braking action. Just so you know, you can't add this. If I add in this braking action information, I'll put something in real quick. I'm going to say it's pour by a BE20 at right now. Over here to the upper right, this is what the domestic format of the NOTAM is. You'll see it did not add this in at all. Braking action is not going to be part of that NOTAM at all. But what happens at this point is it's going to go back to the TALPA committee. The TALPA committee is going to take that information. They're going to compare it to the matrix, and they're going to make sure that it's, you know, it's good information. Now, that being said, myself being 34 years of ATC, and if you guys have ATC, you know, if you have a tower or an approach control at your airport, you're going to know they're constantly going to want that, because this runway condition code is actually good for 24 hours. And we know that it varies during that time. You know, we'd like to keep it up there, but you guys, you know, we know what's going on. You guys are out there removing snow, trying to keep the runway open. Sometimes it gets, you know, these don't get updated all the time. That's why you do have ATC saying, hey, that King Air just landed. What did he say the braking action was? So you're still getting, you know, ATC still wants those real current braking action reports. But, you know, it's just, you know, anymore, it's not actually part of the NOTAM at all. You can't even, you know, if you use NOTAM Manager, you can't put that in at all. So again, you see this period of validity, 24 hours is going to be the max for that information. So I've been about 40 minutes. I have not looked in the chat. I'm going to take just a quick minute and open it up to chat. I see one in there. Natalie, I'll let you help me a little bit navigate through here and tell me what that question is.
Sounds good. So we've got a question from Jim here. What do you see new users struggling with the most?
As far as new, if can they unmute themselves or can they not?
I
No?
can
Okay.
I can do that. I'm not sure if Jim would like to be unmuted.
Oh, wait, well, no, don't worry. So a new user if you're talking new user to just NOTAMs, I would say it is just when do I issue a NOTAM? You know, when do I not issue a NOTAM? What is actually required? Take a little time, go through some of these AC circulars. You know, that 150, 50, 2800 Golf is a really a good one, has a lot of information. As far as NOTAM Manager, I say this, we've got 1,850 airports using NOTAM Manager. We've never had an airport that was on NOTAM Manager that went in and said, I don't like it anymore. When they start, they kind of like the ease, the quickness, that they're able to issue those NOTAMs. they spend a little time. The biggest issue is an airport that doesn't use it, but once a year, and then you kind of forget what you want to do. But if you go through there, they issue so quick. If you spend a little time, all these routine NOTAMs, you're going to issue them all the time. Work in progress on inspection, work in progress grass cutting, just those basic NOTAMs. You get very comfortable with the system and issuing those NOTAMs. I issued. I'm sorry. I issued. I trained an airport in. Can't remember the county name. It was a little small county airport in Pennsylvania last week, and for last month he issued 120 NOTAMs. He's not a Part 139, doesn't receive federal NOTAMs. He doesn't require to, but he goes out there and it's it's not a badge of honor to issue those NOTAMs, but he still has a lot of activities in snow activity. When it's snowing, they issue those NOTAMs. It's just a service to your flying community. That's the main thing. Go out there and be a good steward to what you need in the FAA. Any other questions?
Yeah, we got another one from Jim here. Can users access the site easily from their phone? In the past, some users have complained about submitting NOTAMs from their phone.
I get that all the time. So the answer is no. Obviously on a desktop, laptop, tablet, it looks good. On a phone, can you access it? Yes. There's not an app, so obviously it doesn't look good. It's hard to navigate. I know airports use their phone. If you can get someone to get you a tablet, it looks pretty good on it, but there's not an app. So just so you know, and obviously with everything going in Washington, everything's in flux, but there was at the first of the year, the FAA or the United States NOTAM office announced that they're going to upgrade that and basically go to a new system. All their resources were kind of shift to updating that new system, and spending the money on an app for NOTAM Manager basically got cut completely out. So as long as we're using NOTAM Manager, unless things change, you're not going to see that app. That and Jim, I get that question every time we talk to an airport about NOTAM Manager. Everybody wants an app. I get it. You don't. Half the people just got the phone in your truck out there, and you want to issue that NOTAM. I wish I could give you a better answer than that, but no, I can't. Okay, thank you.
Oh.
Anything
We got
else?
one more in here.
Yep.
What about NOTAMs that are forgotten about and should be taken down, but the manager neglects to?
Okay, well, so I'm assuming we're talking a perm NOTAM because or so if you're talking about a piece of equipment that was NOTAM out of service, and it had an end time of a month from now, but let's say it's a PAPI and you look up and the PAPIs are on, I'm still going to follow that NOTAM. I'm assuming you were talking more in the pilot community. If a piece of equipment's NOTAMed out, I'm going to take it NOTAMed out and take it at that's worth. It might not be flight checked. That happens a lot of time on PAPIs. The equipment is worked, but until it gets flight checked and certified, it's still not a valid piece of equipment. It shouldn't be turned on in that instance. If it's something that should be a NOTAM should be canceled. I can't give you a specific example, but if it's a taxiway that they were working on that looks fine now, I would definitely give that airport manager a call, try to contact some airport personnel, and say, hey, is this still valid? Obviously, me as a NOTAM specialist, United States NOTAM office, all we know is what's published. We don't really actually know what's going on at the airport, so we can't go in and say, well, no, that should be canceled. That's going to definitely be between the flying community and that airport itself. Now, while we brought up that point, a good one to bring up is perm NOTAMs. Now, this has become a point that the FAA, especially United States NOTAM office, the Office of Airports, have really been working on, because there's literally thousands of perm NOTAMs out in the system that have been there for years and years. And what should happen on a perm NOTAM is a perm NOTAM should be used. I'll just give an example of you close a ramp. you had a ramp space and you designated it, whatever, and you permanently close that ramp. Well, at some point in time, you should publish that information. You should go in there, update your 5010s, get your airport mapping information. And once that information is published, if you had VASIs, you upgraded it to PAPIs, you called the VASIs permanently unserviceable. Once that component is published, those new PAPIs, you should go in and cancel that perm NOTAM. Every time I talk to an airport, I talk about doing just that. Go in there, be a good steward, follow up on your due diligence as an airport manager. If you have that perm NOTAM that's been there for 2 or 3 years, that, even though it quote unquote says a permanent NOTAM, that's not really the intent of it. It should be there until you get that information published on your airport directory. Got anything else, Natalie?
Yep, we have one here from Chris asking about if the airport is not staffed in the evening, should you issue a NOTAM for surface conditions not reported in the winter?
Obviously I'm come from an area where we don't have it. I would say yes. Again, that's a good thing to put on your airport directory. If you're a small airport that you're only staffed from 7 in the morning until 7 at night, you can put that in your airport directory. You can say, airport not staffed from 7 at night to 7 in the morning. And again, that relieves your responsibility to do that. But a service conditions not reported is, I still have my screen. I didn't share. Oh, well, am I still sharing?
You're still sharing. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I'll show you how easy that is. I can come in here, aerodrome, and service conditions not reported. That's what that question was. Create, put a time frame in there. If you're going to be gone for the weekend, if you're just a one-man show and you're gone for the weekend, I can start it Friday at 1800 till Monday at 1100. Just so you know, all NOTAMs are in UTC. NOTAM Manager has a great little tool here. Check local time. And I can pull this up. We're in Central, and that would be from Friday at 12, which isn't a good time, till Monday at 5 a.m. So it really quickly, it'll pull that up there. But his question, would I issue it personally? I would issue that. You don't know what's going to happen overnight. I'd go in and issue that service condition not reported. You could publish it, but some information should go out there to the users of your airport. Okay, anything else?
Thank you. That's all I've got for now.
Everybody up there in Minnesota, stay warm. Thank you very much for your time this morning. And like I said, I'm going to give these PowerPoints to Natalie and Rob. They'll have that information. My contact information is there. Don't hesitate at all. My job is to help and support airports. Reach out to me, even if it's not specifically in this. I'm pretty good at least directing you where it needs to go.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Ken.
Thank you, Natalie.
Thanks for being here. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your day. Stay warm.